Welcome to The Blitz, a podcast from Coram Deo Church. The Blitz is all about tackling tough topics head-on at full speed. Are you ready?
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of the day it is that you happen to be checking out this podcast. My name is John, pastor at Coram Deo Church, and I'll be your, host, whatever you want to call it, on The Blitz today. Man, it has been a long while since we've dropped one of these. We've been busy. We've had the holidays. A lot has happened since the last time we recorded. And but here we are. We're back at it today. And I want to talk about not the inauguration, but Trump's presidency. I talked about in my last podcast why I would vote for him, the case for why I thought it was important for him to be the next president. Personally, I thought that he was going to win, and what we saw on election night was not just the Electoral College and swing states leaning his way, but the popular vote going his way, which hasn't happened in a super long time, which I think indicates a national transition. I think that the country is, through their voting, they said, we're tired of DEI, we're tired of the race games, we're tired of the crazy gender insanity, we're tired of, the failed policies of the Biden administration and the issues with the border and the neglect of law and justice. And so now we have a new president. And it was just a few days ago that he was sworn in. I saw some of the celebrations that evening. The YMCA dance is just absolutely hilarious. When he was sworn in, he gave a short address. I think it was like 26 minutes or something, which is pretty short for him. And, I found myself encouraged when he would say certain things. There's at one point in the speech, he says there are only two genders in the United States, or the government is only going to acknowledge two genders, something to that effect, male and female. And I simultaneously found myself saying, yes, I'm so glad you said that. And then the next thought was, why in the world is that refreshing to hear? Why would it be encouraging to hear an elected official say there are only two genders? And it just indicates how crazy the last 4 years have been. It's just been absolutely bonkers in every way you can possibly imagine. It's economically been crazy. Prices are through the roof. People are struggling. Groceries are expensive. People are very confused about gender and race, and you've got just the brain rot of DEI, and all this stuff is going on. And so it feels like the country kind of said enough. We're turning the page, and now we've got some, I think, good common sense policies being put in place. And so I think there are going to be changes. There already are changes. Like I said, this was just a couple days ago that this happened. Things are already changing. But I want to talk about Washington State and specifically Kitsap County. And what does it mean for Trump to be the president locally for us? What difference does it actually make on the ground? So Trump got in. What now? Okay, that's the question. And I think you are going to see things in the economy change. I do think you're going to see globally in terms of our presence and other people's wars. I think that's going to change. I think the way that adversaries view us is going to change. In fact, that's already happening. But I honestly think that here in the People's Republic of Washington, that we are going to experience that change in a very muted way, meaning because there is such a pervasive presence of liberal ideology. I do think that Trump being the president will make some difference, but I think in terms of our country, it's going to make perhaps the least amount of difference for us in Washington. Okay, and I'm saying that not because I want you to be discouraged, but I think there's a danger, right, of saying, hey, the last couple of years they were crazy, which they were. We had a failed administration, which we did. We had an exceptionally corrupt family. With Biden pardoning Fauci and Milley and basically his whole family and everything that was part of the January 6th panel, he has painted the picture that this is a crime family and he's the crime boss. That's what it looks like, okay? And multiple people have observed that and mentioned that. That's what it looks like. So I think that good changes are coming. The good changes are in store. I don't want to discourage you from that. However, national politics do not influence local politics to the extent that you might think. And so there's a danger of going, we've got a better president in, we've gotten rid of some really harmful ideologies and hurtful policies. We've got a better leader in the J.D. Vance as the vice president seems to be an incredibly brilliant guy. Those changes are good, so we don't have to do anything, right? And that's a huge error. That's a massive strategic error to make, to think that because we've got a more, Trump isn't a conservative in the classical sense, but we have an administration that is going to be more conservative, an administration that at least understands that the binary is real. There's the danger of thinking that, well, that's going to change stuff, and so we don't need to do anything. And like I said, it's not going to change things as much in Washington as you might think or hope for or expect, because Washington is driven by a far left agenda and ideology. And so the worst thing that you could do right now would be to say, hey, Trump won. Okay, let's just kick back and enjoy the next 4 years. Because I can tell you for sure that the other side is not doing that, right? We still live in a very, very liberal community, a very, very liberal state. At least the I-5 corridor and the cities that run the state. The eastern part of the state is not like that, but the I-5 corridor absolutely is. So you need to understand that things are not going to change here very much. And in fact, because of the election of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance as the president and vice president of the country, what you may see is the left acting with greater intensity. You may see an uptick in activity because there's a sense of desperation, because they want to, in their opinion, they want to shelter, and again, their language would be to protect Washington from what they think is harmful policies that will be coming from the president. So if you're sitting there thinking, hey, we've got a better president in and things are going to be good now and we can just chill, then I think that you're wrong. And I think that you're falling into a trap. Things are not going to change here as much as you'd want, as much as you might expect. Just had a recent conversation with a guy who works for the government locally, and man, the policies that they have to live with, even in terms of like what you can talk about and bumper stickers on your car, is just crazy. So you need to kill the idea that, hey, you can just chill. No, you can't chill, right? We still need to be engaged locally. You need to think about your own community, where you work, where you live. Think about your neighborhood. You need to be thinking about those things. You need to be focused on those things, and you need to be active in whatever way that you can be active. You need to be involved and aware of things that are going on, things to be thinking about. Our local schools. What is going on with our local schools? Is there any sort of presence at the school board meetings? I know I was recently, I went to a number of board meetings last year, and I was questioned by somebody. They didn't think that I had any right to be there because they thought that my kids were not enrolled in the district, which was not technically true, or it was not true at that time. However, you don't have to have kids in the school district to have a voice at the school board, because your taxes are paying for the school, right? So So you need to be involved, and you need to think about how can you be involved locally. So schools are one way that you can be involved. Think about local politics. Think about city councils. Think about local positions that might be open. One of the things that I think that Christians, that we need to get over, is this notion that there's no role in politics for Christians, and that's absolutely not true. And that lie is part of the reason that we're in the situation that we are currently in. Christians have abandoned politics. Politics don't change hearts. We know that. They're never intended to it was never intended to change hearts. But that's not to say that politics have no role. They do have a role. They do affect a community. And so and local politics are really the most important politics, right? We get caught up with the national stuff. We even get caught up with state stuff, like who's the governor and whatnot. But local politics are actually first. So be aware of what's happening locally. You might consider, how could you get involved in local politics as a person of faith, as a Christian who wants to honor God and wants to see their community flourish and wants to see their community honor God as well. Like, there is a role there. There is opportunities there. You need to be thinking about that. Don't just think that because Trump's president that now this stuff is all going to be great. It's not going to be great. Christians need to be involved. You also need to continue speaking. So there was certainly an uptick on social media regarding policies and politics and worldviews and ideologies and all that stuff, and that was front and center because of the election, because it was being debated, at the national level between these two candidates. Or Kamala really didn't do any debating, but you know what I'm saying? People are talking about different policies. Don't hit the pause button on that. Don't stop talking about policies. Don't stop talking about truth. Don't stop talking about what is good for a community or for a city or a county, a state, or for a country. Speak up about those things. This is not the time to be quiet. It's not the time to be disengaged. This is actually the time that you need to really have an uptick in all of those things. So think about being involved locally. Think about what you can say. How can you communicate? How can you articulate a view for our community, a view for culture? Talk about truth. And here's the other thing. I do think there is a little bit of a reprieve because of the election. Like, it's not going to be as much as you think, but I think there is a little bit of it. But you need to, and Christians need to get serious about worship. Whenever there is, you're thinking just a couple years ago with COVID and all the stuff that went along with that and all the decisions and all, you had a lot of people talking about ideology and values and truth and tyranny and all that. It's not unlike what has been going on the last year, actually. But one of the things that did is it kind of reawakened the church, and it drew lines, and it was purifying. There was definitely a time of purification, meaning that people who were on the fringes, who weren't necessarily serious about their faith and worshiping God, that those people kind of unfortunately fell to the sides and kind of self-selected themselves out. But then it also, the opposite of that is also true. There are people who were kind of in the middle that are like, man, I need to take this seriously. And so they either re-engaged with their faith, started going to church again, or they were part of a church but weren't necessarily invested in it and taking it seriously. This is a moment to wake up and to focus and to reprioritize and to say, I have to be nourished, matured, cared for in a spiritual sense. I need to be part of a community of believers. I need to be part of a church. I need to be fed by the word. I need to be instructed. I need to be in community. I need to worship. I need to get things in order. And that always starts at home, right? You're not going to see change in a local community by first trying to change that local community in a way that you yourself have not changed. Right, our desire as Christians is not just to see certain policies put in place. Yes, those things matter. Yes, they are important, but no, those things are not ultimate. What we want to see is our community come to faith in Christ, to become disciples of Christ, to walk with Christ. But that's not going to happen if we're not doing it first. Right? You can't ask somebody to come taste and see something that you have not tasted and seen for yourself. So instead of starting with the community and thinking like, how do we change the state? How do we change the county? How do we change the community? You have to start with, okay, God, what needs to change in me? This is a time to evaluate, to think about the last couple years, to think about where you're at, and to be intentional about your priorities, and then to start to go to work on yourself and figure out, where do you need to grow? Where do you need to develop? Where are there areas of obedience? Where are there areas of disobedience? And do the main things, right? Do the main things, the primary means of grace that God has given to nurture you and grow you. Make those things priorities. Those things are the Word and the sacraments. Like, go to church, listen to the Word, obey the Word, confess your sins, worship God, receive communion. Just do that consistently. Make that a priority, because change, right, it always begins with the individual and the family and the church, and then the community follows that. So kind of to sum some of this up here, okay, I do think that there are some good changes that are coming. I do not think it's going to change our community as much as some people are hoping or expecting, because we are very insulated by just because we're surrounded by liberal ideology. So don't just check out now because your guy is in the Oval Office. This is a time to be focused. It's a time to recommit. It's a time to evaluate yourself, and it's a time to build up your own strength and prepare yourself. And it's a time to go, okay, what are the local opportunities for Christians to get involved in politics, in caring for the community, policies? How do you use your voice? All that stuff. Don't take a break right now. This is not the time to take a break. This is the time to evaluate and to get back to work, and to get after it. So I want to encourage you to do that, and I hope that this was helpful. And like I said, I do think there are some good things, but I think there's a lot of work to be done, and let's get after it. All right. Hope you enjoyed this. We will talk to you soon. Until next time, take care.